I don't like it when things move slower than I want them to. I think my timeline is pretty fantastic, and I don't understand why God doesn't hop on board. And then I realized, oh, wait, yeah, he's the creator of all things. He probably knows what he's doing more than I do.
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your step. No point in even trying now, just let it go. Maybe they will write this ain't for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see. A 9 to 5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you that's no way to live. Way to live. Promise that's no way to live. Way to live.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod. Woo!
Yay!
I'm Brooke Ackerman.
And I'm Denise Acosta.
So we've been talking about calling, and today we're still talking about calling.
How much can we beat this dead horse?
It's not a dead horse. It's a lovely horse running wild and free in a field, living its best life.
This is true. This is true.
I think we can both agree that when we started out, we thought it was just going to be all sunshine and rainbows and smooth sailing.
Yeah. Like floating on a cloud. I know. I definitely felt that way when I got my calling. I'm like, yes, it's going to be great. I love it. It's going to be awesome. And I'm get to do this all day, every day. And it's going to be wonderful. And there's a lot that is wonderful.
Absolutely.
And there are some moments where I'm just like, oh my gosh, God, what are we doing? Because there's this whole area that's being neglected, in my opinion, that really needs some attention. And how are we going to get through that?
Wait, you too?
Yeah.
Good. See, makes me feel better that I'm not alone.
Nope.
In the fun and the what is happening right now moments.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us a little more about you knew. Yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but it wasn't all floating on a cloud, and it wasn't sunshine and rainbows, and you had your first few, what is happening?
Yeah.
moments. Yeah.
Because sometimes God will give me a vision on something, and the vision is like the end result. So it's like you see these big moments for things, how some things may have panned out or might look like. And so, yeah, I get started. I'm like, it's going to be great. And then how do I even halfway get to what I just saw? How does that even happen? Nobody knows who I am. I'm putting out posts to an audience of no one. And what am I creating? And then how much time do I spend on that one thing? And do I move to the next? Is this not working, or is that working and I just need to build it and grow with it? And yeah, there's just a lot of unknowns about things. And when you're building something that's something brand new, life is still happening around you. Life does not stop moving for you until you get your calling up and running and you're getting to enjoy all the fruits of that success. So yeah, it's an odd feeling. It's hard to describe. Because on the one hand, you're super confident, or me in my case specifically, very confident in my calling and what God is asking me to do, both through Misfit and in the ministries that I'm involved in. And then there are other aspects of life that still have a ton of figuring out. And it's not just that God's waving this magic wand and poof, it all happens. There's a lot of areas that need to be attended to there too on a personal level, whether it's mindset or dealing with something else that's been a personal obstacle. So while everything started off on this lovely floating cloud of purpose, once you're in the thick of it, it definitely feels very sticky and uncertain for sure. How about you, ma'am?
I feel like you said, I was very confident in what God was asking me to do. I just didn't feel like I knew how. I knew some of the how, but some of it was, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know how to start. I didn't know how to walk it out. And thank goodness God put lots of people in my corner to let me ask them a bunch of questions, people who are doing similar work and they're further down the road, and I could ask them, what did this look like for you when you were starting? But then also people to just help with all areas of running a business that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I felt absolutely sure that God was shifting me from the job that I had at the time to starting my own coaching practice, but I just didn't know how to do all of the things. And a good friend had said to me, don't feel like you have to have all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed before you start. You can start and figure out some of the things along the way. There were some things I needed to have set as far as paperwork and that kind of thing, but I didn't need to know all of the details. I didn't have to know how to get to the end picture, but that felt a little scary, not knowing how to get there, even though I was stepping out and trying it. A little nerve-wracking. But that does seem to be the way God likes to operate. It's always adventurous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's never boring.
No, not at all.
Keeps you on your toes.
For sure. So speaking of that, him keeping you on your toes, what has been surprising to you in a good way?
Yeah, having these challenges and how I look at them and then how I respond to them. Whereas before it was, oh, I need to shift. I need to do this. I got to try harder. Always got to try harder.
Oh, man.
Versus the times where I finally hit a wall and I'm just like, okay, I really can't do anything else. God, I'm out of options. Like, you're up. And then I can just hear God being like, finally. And I'm like, oh, my bad. Also, sometimes I think the biggest thing for me that I've noticed is instead of going through that whole cycle of burning out, I'm more inclined to surrender now about things and just hearing what is happening here. Is this, I'm not supposed to figure it out, and actually God has a plan for this, and so in the meantime, he wants me to do something else. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things, but just taking that step to surrender first versus just going into overdrive.
That feeling of you've got to figure it out for yourself. I know nothing about that feeling, Denise. That must have been really tough for you.
Must be nice.
Yeah, because I felt secure in what God was asking me to do. I feel like there was this deep sense of peace, even though there were question marks, even though there were lots of details that I didn't exactly know how it was going to turn out. Knowing that I knew the what gave me a sense of security, and it helped me feel safer in trusting the process for him to reveal, even if it was slower than I wanted it to be, the how. There was this, it felt like those times where the feeling of peace doesn't make any sense because things aren't lining up. I'm not bringing in income. And not that that's the sole thing that measures whether or not I'm on track or doing things, quote unquote, right. But yeah, this feeling of peace deep inside, even though I wasn't sure about all of the other details. It was like a lighthouse. Like there was like a guiding,
oh, yay.
Yes, you're headed in the right direction. Keep going this way, even though I didn't know all of the details.
The confirmation.
Yeah.
So something, and I don't know what word it is that you said in just now, but it reminded me of a story. So again, we have our own personal timelines for how we think things are supposed to go in order for us to gauge whether or not we're being successful in it. And so again, this is very new for me. And I remember this day I was out walking. I was listening to one of Brian's sermons that I had missed for whatever reason that Sunday. And so I'm walking, listening to this, and I'm in a headspace. It's a new week where I'm just kind of like, am I doing the right thing? Because it takes time to build something. I'm not going to see a ton of at least financial fruit for a long time, hopefully not a long time, but things are, I'm not really sure if I really did hear God correctly. Maybe I didn't. And all these doubts start coming in. So here I am listening to the sermon, and I don't remember entirely what it was about right now, but I'm walking this way. I'm walking in the direction of traffic, and before I know it, this car jumps in front of me on the walking path.
Like the car left the road.
The car left the road, and by a hair, because I felt it brush past my hand. By a hair, did not touch me, swerved up, and I could have died. So I'm freaking out. Oh my gosh, did this really just happen? And there's no other story left to share about the car. They didn't stop. They eventually went. Nothing else to add there other than just me being super in shock. And so I could have just died, but I didn't die. So then it's got to be for a reason. And I just remember hearing the verse, he who starts a good work in you sees it to completion, something along those lines. And it's the first thing that came to mind. And I remember feeling like God was like, this is where I want you to be. You have a purpose, and you're in the process of fulfilling it. And it was a lot more crazy sounding than how I'm articulating right now, because it was a very surreal moment. But I just remember being in that headspace. Oh, I don't know. Is this really a thing? And maybe I heard wrong. And then because it's not working the way, or it's not going in the timeline that I would like to see. And it's not our timeline, it's God's timeline. But I got that confirmation right then and there, almost immediately. It felt audible to me, and just that small conversation with God reconfirming the calling and to keep doing what I'm doing, and that it is what he wants me to do and it is making a difference, and just keep at it. So while I was already starting to live out my calling and doing what I'm doing, it still definitely felt lonely, in the sense that I knew a lot of people thought I was crazy. I just closed the business entirely. I'm not just still doing that and working on my calling because I felt like God told me to do that. And so obviously I had some very concerned friends and family members, and I don't blame them, but it does make for a very lonely time. And it also is confusing, because how do you gauge if you are successfully progressing as God wants you to without comparing it to what your own thoughts on that are? So it's not always easy by any means, but one thing that how it's affected in other areas of my life, living out this calling, is just the effects that it's had on my relationships, whether family, friends, how I view situations, or circumstances. I look at them differently now because I'm so much more rooted in God, in that relationship, and knowing that I need his advice on every single thing under the sun for this calling. I'm super dependent on him because I have to be. We should be, but I definitely have to be. So yeah, all of those moments where it's easy to look at it as, oh no, this is a bad thing, and so that means I'm doing something wrong and I need to stop doing this, or God doesn't want me to do this then because it suddenly became so difficult. Not necessarily, because there's a lot of learning material, which we can dive into that in a little bit. Just a lot of things to learn from those. But for me, at least, this whole on a nice cloud of purpose and the challenges that come with it, I can't say I welcome the challenges, but they have definitely been useful and they've been helpful. And I see that in all my relationships. It's affected everything. So how do we tell the difference between God asking us to pivot or if he's just refining us through the process?
You had said something just a little bit ago about something about things working out or things not working out. I can't quite remember exactly how you had said it, but I think we're often tempted to think if we're floating on our cloud, if things are going well, then we must be in line with what God has for us. And a lot of times that's true, but a lot of times things can be very difficult for us. Things can look confusing. Things can feel uncomfortable. And that doesn't mean that we are not in line with what God has for us, because I think we get tied to the idea of comfort, and that if we're comfortable and things are smooth, then we're on the right path. And if I feel uncomfortable, then this might not be what God has for me. And I think God is far more concerned with shaping us into the person he created us to be than he is with our comfort. And I don't mean that to sound like God purposely causes us pain or brings us discomfort. Think about it as if you are a statue, the sculptor is going to sand off rough edges. The sculptor is going to knock off pieces of whatever the material is. And if that sculpture was alive, that would hurt, right? God's sanding off rough edges on us. He's shaping us and molding us into who he truly wants us to be. And sometimes that happens through pain and discomfort, not because he's mean, but because unfortunately he can't get our attention any other way. I think he often tries to get our attention other ways, but we unfortunately seem to learn through difficult situations and challenges, and when we are in a certain level of discomfort. And again, not that God is mean and is doing that to us, but we seem to take those lessons more to heart. And so rather than assuming this isn't going the way that I thought, and so it must not be what God has. This is uncomfortable, and so this must not be what God has for me. I think rather than writing that story for ourselves and interpreting it for ourselves, that's a really good time to invite him even further in and ask him, how do you see this? What are you showing me in this difficult moment or this uncomfortable spot? And he'll show you. He will communicate to you in a way that makes sense to you because he wants to communicate with us. And I think sometimes we need to shift our perspective of discomfort or a rocky road, because just because it's not going the way that we thought doesn't mean we're out of line with what God has for us.
Also, diamonds are made under pressure.
Under pressure.
Mm-hmm. And I think I saw a meme where it was something like, when you ask someone when they've experienced God the most, it's never an easy story. It's never an easy time. It's always a challenge.
It refines us in a way that the good times can't. And there are plenty of good things and positive moments and smooth sailing as well. But there is something about experiencing a difficult moment. I mean, supposedly grapes that have to struggle make really good wine. Caterpillars in a chrysalis. There's something to the idea of the struggle that strengthens us and refines us and shapes us in ways that other things don't.
Mm-hmm.
But that's hard. It's hard to feel like God is good when I'm having a difficult time. This doesn't feel good, so that's hard to reconcile. But that's definitely an area where we can learn more about who God is and who he says we are.
So how do we respond in those moments?
Initially, how I respond often is like a toddler in the corner stamping my foot, throwing a tantrum. Why isn't this the way that I thought it was going to go? Why isn't this easier? Mm-hmm. That's how I often initially respond.
But why?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's so kind that God lets me throw my tantrum. And then much like when you comfort I
do love that. And say that again, because I think that some people don't realize that it's okay to be that straightforward with God. I mean, he already knows how we're feeling, but don't feel like you need to hide that from him. He wants all of us, and even those moments that we're unhappy about a situation, to just be open and honest about that.
Yep, for sure. That was one of the many things that Brian Bales, pastor of our church, said to me. Brian. I remember talking to both he and his wife, Kathy, and I said, I feel like a toddler stamping my foot in the corner. And he said to me, I think you need to be okay with being the toddler stamping your foot in the corner, because God knows that's where you are and he's okay with it. And you're right. I think, again, that's another one of those things where, that must mean I'm not trusting God. That must mean I don't have enough faith. No, we are human beings. We are multifaceted in our emotions and how we handle things. And God is really okay with all of it. He can handle our frustration and our anger and our sadness and our confusion. And really what he wants, much like a small child when they are throwing a temper tantrum, when they cry it all out and they're finished, then the parent comes over and comforts and reassures. And I think that's very much how God is too, that once I'm done with but this isn't what I wanted, this isn't the way I thought it was going to go, then it's almost like wrapping me up in a hug. And when I spend time with him and ask him for his perspective and what is it that you do want me to experience here or learn or see in this moment, it's always good. It's always better than what I thought of for myself, but I have to get over my tantrum first. And that's way more than okay.
We love the friends that we get to be fully transparent with.
Yes.
We should be the same with God. He created us. I've always found that helped me a lot in my relationship with him, to know that when I have those moments, I can just go and kicking and screaming, flipping tables, whatever that looks like for you guys. To me, it's flipping tables in my head. And he's just, okay, are we done? Oh, not yet. I need 5 more minutes, God, 5 more minutes. And I'm like flipping these tables in my head, right? And then, okay, then we have a conversation about things. And he's always got the best things to say about it. But let's say that maybe someone hasn't fully dived into that close of a relationship with God. I think how I started that I found helpful is looking back and remembering on the other times where I was feeling chaotic about things that how is this going to be resolved? And obviously God saw it through, right? And so just to remember that and keep those at the forefront. Well, if he did it then, he's going to do it now. By the way, he is the promise keeper. So don't have to worry about that at least. But I always found that was helpful for me. God makes a lot of promises in the Bible and he's followed through on all of them. Just knowing that I can rest in that, even if I don't have the outcome, has always been helpful too.
And even if you don't have a relationship with God and you're listening to us, I don't know your story, but I know that you have at least one person in your corner. I know there's somebody in your life who supports you and encourages you. And so if you don't have that relationship with God and you feel like that's not an avenue for you, go to the people who are in your life, who you know are healthy, who you know are your source of encouragement, and who are going to be in your corner and support you, because that matters too. We are designed to live in connection and community with each other, and those people are in your life for a reason. And you know what it's like when you're that person for somebody else, when you're the one who's the support and the encourager. And so let those people be that for you too.
Hear, hear.
Huzzah.
So then in those moments, we can maybe invite God into the conversation and ask if it's something that he's steering us towards or maybe just stretching us in our lives.
Again, it's frustrating that the difficult moments are the ones that strengthen us. And it's like when we go to the gym to build muscle, it's a hard workout is what does that for you. It's what burns the calories. It's what builds muscle. Sitting on your couch and eating potato chips doesn't do it the same for you, even though that's really fun too.
But like when we go to the gym.
Right. When we go to the gym. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Okay, then. So are there some signs that can help us figure that out, that maybe point to when it's a time to pivot, when it's refining season? Any thoughts?
Yes, a few thoughts. It's really surprising when God tries to redirect you when things are going well. We don't seem to want redirection when we feel like things are going well. And again, I feel like it's God sees the whole big picture, and we are seeing like a 1 inch by 1 inch square of this giant picture. And he really does know what he's doing. We truly can trust him. He is trustworthy. And so if you feel like he is shifting you, even though things are going really well, I know what that's like. It's difficult to feel like, but I like this. I don't want to change this. I don't want to move. If you have developed that kind of a relationship with him, you can tell him that. You can throw a tantrum if you need to. You can just even ask the question, I don't really know if I like this. Is this really what you want me to do? But he does know what he's doing, and you can shift with him even though things are going well. Sometimes, though, God will sour the situation to make it easier for you to shift. And there's no formula. There's really no other way to determine that other than to ask him. And so engage him in a conversation in whatever way that looks for you. But often the way that he has wired you, that's not changing. And so that thing that lights you up inside, that passion that you have, that will still be evident in the new thing that he is shifting you to. It just might be in an indifferent environment. He created you, and so he knows all of these things about you. And so he might be shifting you in a direction that he now wants you to use that same wiring and gifting. It just might look a little bit different. You got any thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, maybe not specifically on what you said, but just another thought I had while you were talking. One thing I mentioned before about how I will feel the fruit of the Spirit, or one example of it when I'm doing something as confirmation. Also, if it's something that I need to pivot or just shift but still stay in the same calling, is also in the same thing as, am I feeling a fruit of the Spirit? And so when I say that, I don't mean that everything is always sunshine and rainbows, because you can still feel peace in the middle of a lot of chaos and challenges. And so if I'm still in that, then maybe I'm still in the calling, I'm just shifting. Or if I'm feeling none of those things, if I'm no longer feeling joy, peace, hope, or anything, then maybe God's asking me to redirect to something completely different, not in that same space. So that was just one of the thoughts I had while you're talking.
And it's almost like that's the undercurrent, because he can be shifting you and it feels a little unsettling. It might feel confusing, but underneath that, if you take a moment and pause and tune in, underneath the confusion or the I don't want to, or the it still feels like this feels right. This is what you're shifting me. Because whenever God asked me to leave teaching, I was like, what are you talking about? I loved it. I didn't want to leave. I thought I was going to do it till retirement. But when I got finished with all of that, but I didn't want, and that's not, no, I don't want to. When I paused, I was like, wait, but there's something in here deep inside that's, yes, this feels right. And so that peace or whatever, like you said, whatever fruit of the Spirit seems to be the overriding factor. It's really interesting how that can coexist.
Also, I want to bring up again the whole on our timeline thing, right? Because I think that's the biggest thing I get hung up on sometimes. And I know some of my friends do. We start panicking because now it's actually been a certain amount of time until we've seen something. And so maybe this isn't what God wants. And so maybe that fruit that you're used to experiencing is coming at a slower rate. And so does that mean shift, or does that mean no? Maybe God's just saying that you're still on track. And just being mindful of, are we stressing because we're concerned about the timeline that we've given for ourselves or our expectations or what we feel progress looks like in this scenario? Or are we actually leaving that to God?
The whole our timing, his timing thing, I don't like it when things move slower than I want them to. I think my timeline is pretty fantastic, and I don't understand why God doesn't hop on board. And then I realized, oh, wait, he's the creator of all things. He probably knows what he's doing more than I do. Yeah, so but I still have but wait, I thought, can't we? Yeah, I remember one time saying to, Polly Hamp, mentioned her last time. I remember saying something to her one time about how something that I wanted to see happening, it was slow. It was moving so slow. And her wise words to me were, slow is movement. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, crud, you're right. Slow is movement. Just because it's going slower than I think it should or slower than I want it to doesn't mean that it's not right, doesn't mean that it's not moving, because slow is movement.
Also, progress is not linear.
No, it is not.
One step forward, two steps back. It's all a dance. Progress is progress, and it doesn't look the same for all of us. It could look very different.
Yeah, which is why comparison is so not helpful.
Yeah, the thief of joy. I have so many quotes in this noggin, you guys. Ask me. So we're stuck in these moments. It's hard. We're trying to figure out if God is having us shifting from the calling completely or if it's just a refining process. So then are we like dipping out and departing, or is it possible that God is trying to deepen our relationship with him, deepen that dependence that we aren't really used to having? Certainly not in this society. We're not the kind of people who want to depend on anyone other than ourselves. We want to be self-sufficient. It could just be that God is working on that dependence.
Redefining that has been very interesting in my life, the way that God has redefined that. Because you're right, in every other facet of our lives, we are taught to eventually be independent. Mm-hmm. And God never designed us to be independent of him. We are always supposed to be dependent on him. And that is such a hard concept to be okay with, because it feels weak. It feels less than. It feels like, no, I should be able to get to a point where I get to call my own shots and do what I want. And you can. I tried it. It didn't go well for me. Let me know if it goes well for you.
Not me. I got plenty of stories where that did not go well.
Yeah, but it is the one area of our lives where it feels counterintuitive. It goes against the grain of everything else that we're taught. Because like I said, everything else we're taught to be eventually independent. I'll do it myself. And it goes so much better if we stay connected to God and rely on him. And that's not weakness. That's not you're doing it wrong. It's actually how we were designed. So we're fulfilling our purpose so much more when we stay dependent on him.
Also, where are those voices coming from? We should check in on those sometimes too, guys.
For sure.
Because they are not from God. On the whole, like doing it our way, we're insisting on stuff and being self-sufficient. So there have been many times for me where I have just done it my way and it didn't work out. And I'm sure we all have stories that we can talk about for days on that. But lately, I have been trying to do the opposite. When I hear a no from God, to go ahead and follow through on that, even though it makes no sense to me. So the obvious question, well, Denise, if this is supposed to be your income, then why don't you just get a part-time job? I know, right? Doesn't that sound like the smart thing to do? Doesn't that sound like what normal people would do. And you could still have all your bills paid while you start working and building on this thing. And yeah, I said the same thing. And I asked God, we prayed about it for a while, because first it was, all right, let's pray for what kind of part-time job I should get, because I have a very unique situation at home that I have to work around. So I wanted to make sure that we would work with that and that it was God ordained and whatever. And then it just like nothing was really coming up. And so then I was like, oh, wait, but maybe I should ask if I should have one at all. And so then my prayer shifted there. And so then it's, okay, do I get a part-time job at all? And God said no. And I know y'all think I'm crazy right now, and that's okay.
I don't think you're crazy.
Okay, one. And that was really hard for me because I have very real financial struggles, and I knew right away why, and I could hear him reiterating it in my conversation with him, and for all very valid reasons. I can pick up another job, and then I'm going to get distracted doing that, and I'm going to take care of my other responsibilities once that's over, and then I'm just going to be exhausted, and I'm not going to be in that space to create what I enjoy creating, and emphasis on enjoy creating, because this certainly would not be coming from a place of enjoyment at that point anymore. It's going to be coming from creating for God versus from God. And so it would definitely pull me away, and we had a conversation about that for sure. And yeah, being misunderstood, where the obvious thing you would think would be to get a part-time job to do this, and God's telling you no. And you're like, well, why, God? It doesn't make sense. And I had another similar situation happen recently, and it was hard. Like, I heard no, and I remember I was crying in my Jeep because I was like, wow, God, I really could have used that. That could have been really helpful for me. Why are you saying no? And just being able to surrender and trust that is not easy. It's really hard to do, but he knows what he's doing. And I've definitely learned in my life, when I have done it my way, I have ended up far worse than when I started.
And isn't it so, it's even more difficult when he says no, but he doesn't tell you why.
Yeah.
But
second time he didn't really tell me why.
But again, there's something deep in there that you feel like it's a no.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to know why, and you even ask why, but he doesn't necessarily tell you. And you can either take that and trust him, or you can go against the no and do whatever. And again, same experience, because I had a period of my life too that I was like, maybe I should just get a part-time job. Should I get a part-time job? And I even tried. I tried so hard, and I even had a friend set me up for an interview, and right before the interview, I was like, I got to tell these people that I'm not even going to interview. It was so confusing and so difficult. And I had to apologize to the friend. Thanks for all the effort, but I'm not doing any of it. And thankfully, he has a relationship with God too, and so he understands. But yeah, I've definitely had the feelings of people think I'm crazy. People have no idea why I'm choosing to not get a part-time job, not follow through with things that seem to just make good sense. But yeah, so such an interesting ride with God. So interesting.
It is. a lot of refining.
Oh my goodness, yes. A lot of sanding off the rough edges. Whew.
It is really neat though when you do get to talk about these moments, whether somebody's just trying to hear your story or you've now met someone who is in a situation that you were able to overcome. That's when you start seeing where you're like, oh, okay, that's why, God. Like sometimes you'll get to know the why, you'll see it sooner. Sometimes that doesn't come until several years later, and sometimes not even in this lifetime.
Yep.
But it is neat to see it when you do get to see it, to see how it all makes sense. Because yeah, he's a God of the universe. Of course he knows what he's doing. I only see this much. He sees all of it, of course.
Life with God is interesting. It doesn't always seem to make sense to us. It's not always going to be a smooth road. But again, like we said before, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong, that you're out of line with what he has for you. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about living where I live, I'm sure I mentioned it before, but my husband and I several years ago bought a really, really old house, and not like a lovingly cared for old Virginia home. Like this house, we love it, but it needs a lot of work. And we have 5 acres, and the 5 acres needs a lot of work, and we've made progress, but to to reclaim the wild, overgrown places on our property has been a really interesting experience. I feel like God really communicates a lot to us in that process, because one of the things that the previous owner did was they planted a lot of fruit trees. So we have 2 pear trees, we have several plum trees, there's an apple tree, and we've since planted a peach tree. It's just so fun. It is so fun.
So hungry now. I'm like, nom, nom, nom.
But one of the interesting things about fruit trees is that you have to prune them. And pruning means that you cut off a perfectly good, healthy, growing branch. What? Why would you do that? Now, it makes sense to cut the branches that are damaged, or the branches that have something growing, like a fungus growing on them that shouldn't be there, that could then affect the rest of the tree. But to promote healthy growth in a fruit tree, you sometimes have to cut off branches that there's nothing wrong with them other than they might be growing in a direction that's going to hurt the rest of the tree, or it's not as advantageous to the tree. And so to cut off a healthy growing piece is strange but necessary for the overall health of the tree. And again, if I could ask the tree how it feels when I cut off a branch, it probably would hurt. Pruning would hurt, but all growth requires pruning. And so if we want to continue in this life with God and grow and change and become more and more who he designed us to be, he is also going to need to prune us, which is going to hurt. It's going to feel like, why are you asking me to step away from this really good thing? I stepped away from a steady every 2 weeks paycheck.
That's nice.
I stepped away from that to start my own coaching practice where, again, I mean, we're okay, but would I like to bring in more income? Sure. Is that the only reason I'm doing coaching? Of course not. But I would like to feel like I'm contributing to the family finances more so than I am. And so to step away from something, to prune away something that is good. And I liked my job. It was great. I had a lot of fun. I thought I was pretty good at it. I loved my coworkers. But growth requires pruning, and that's not always going to make sense. It's not always going to look like you expect. But again, if you have that kind of relationship with God, you can ask him questions. He might tell you why, he might not, but trusting him is so key and so necessary. Yeah, the pruning, it's a tricky one.
Yeah. I like that. I like how you worded that. Thank you.
Oh, that's not solely from me. The all growth requires pruning came from a much wiser person further down the road. But that's one of those that's stuck in there, and I definitely use it because it's too good not to.
Yeah. Also, I just want to frolic around the fruit trees like Snow White and grab some fruits.
Well, I'll let you know when everything's growing. You can come frolic and pick fruit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one thing I think that is safe to say from our conversation today is that just as present as God was when he gave us this calling and put us on this nice floating cloud of purpose, he is just as present in that weariness, in those dark moments, in those times where we have no idea why God is doing things the way he's doing things. And God, everyone thinks I look crazy and insane right now. And why are you letting them continue to look at me that way? Give me something, throw me a bone. He's still very much in that process. So yeah, it's a nice invitation to check back in and see what he wants from us in that moment.
Yeah. And ask him things like, what are you growing here? What are you building in me? What are we building together? And again, he might not give you the kinds of answers that you're expecting or hoping or looking for, but if you're able to quiet yourself and give him time to answer, he will answer in a way that makes sense to you. He will give you enough that you know you're on the right track and what the one next step is. And that's something that I always struggle with too, is that I want the next 15 steps. And he doesn't always give me the next 15. He gives me the next one, and then I take that one step, and then he gives me the next one step.
That's how it always is. You know what else is hard? Is taking a break from your calling so you're not neglecting yourself. That's a big thing that I struggle with, for sure. Do you?
Yeah, learning to rest, like truly rest, not veg out watching something on a streaming service, but to truly let God restore me has been a learning process. Still
Keyword
is.
restore.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Not numbing out, it's true restoration so that I get filled back up again so that I can have then something healthy to offer. Yeah. Learning to let God actually fill you up, restore, not just watch the next series, watch the next episode. And not that I haven't done that, but that's not always actually restorative.
Golden Girls is it's my comfort show.
Oh, I love the Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend. We can't sing. That's probably copyrighted. It's a real song. Did you know that? That's it's not just a theme song. That's a real song.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to unsing that.
Another wise person that I've learned so much from, or I guess I should say people, are John and Stacy Eldridge. Their ministry is called Wild at Heart. Look them up too.
I think I've read one of his books.
Oh, so many of his books, like all of their books, seriously, every one of them. There's not one that I wouldn't recommend. Both he and his wife. Phenomenal writers. And what I love about them is that they live the life. They don't just write a book about it. They live it and then they share it with others. But one of the things that they wrote, and they have daily readings that you can subscribe to, is this idea of being a reservoir, not a canal. And that has been life-changing for me too, is that a canal is small, it fills up a little bit of water, and then it empties. And then it fills up a little bit of water. And we get a little bit of something, and then we immediately want to give it away. Or we feel like this little nugget that God just talked to me about, I should probably share that. And maybe it's just for me for right now. And maybe I eventually share. But the idea of a reservoir is that it fills up to overflowing. And that's really, I have to come back to that so many times, is that, I can get a little bit and then I can give it away immediately. But it's far better for me. And honestly, it's better for those that I'm meeting with and working with if I'm not just giving the tiny little droplets of water that I have available to me, that if I wait until I am full up with God's presence and connection with him, and then out of the overflow of that is what I offer to others, wow, does that work so much better. And so that filling up time, that's the resting. That's allowing for actual restoration of whatever God is doing in me, so that then from the overflow of that is what others experience when they're with me.
And more like stepping away, not just redirecting into the same work, because I have a tendency of doing that too. Oh, okay, we'll rest, but we'll just do less demanding work as a rest, and that's not the case. But I like that example. I can see that visually in my head. That's very helpful. I trying to be better about that too myself. That's definitely something I struggle with, and then I feel guilty about it because I'm not working out of my calling, and so those are things that I'm still processing with God on.
Again, I have no experience with that, Denise. That must be really tough for you. Was that not believable? Was that not convincing?
No.
Oh. Okay, good. Because that was sarcasm.
/S.
As the children say.
So to wrap things up, just because things are hard doesn't mean that you need to stop doing things or that it's wrong. So we can reflect and invite God and see what he's asking us to work on.
So let us know how that's going for you, because we obviously are sharing with you. We'd love to hear from you all. And tune in next time where we'll talk about all kinds of more fun things in our lives.
Yay. Okay, bye. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast, Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm not sure how you found us today, but just want to make sure you know all the platforms we are on. And those are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Music.
And if you would like to reach us directly, you can send us an email at prodigalpeas@gmail.com.
So since this podcast is a merge of both of our brands, mine is Misfit of Creation. And if you're looking to get more information on that, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and the Etsy shop, which is where you can find all those downloadable tools and products.
And if you'd like to find out more about my coaching practice, you can find me at blueprintheartandmind.com, where I have a blog totally free. Come check it out. And you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.
Think I get it now, I need to be myself because a copycat can only do so well. In love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup plan, I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission, I got some fruition, you down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating, I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first, he been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee you that's the way to live. Way to live, promise that's the way to live. Way to live, promise that's the way to live.
Ready?
Mm-hmm. Ready, Freddy?
Who's Freddie?
Spaghetti?
Oh, I like spaghetti.
Me too, and we're hungry.